City Council due to the disaster declaration issued by Governor Pritzker. Because of this order related to COVID-19 health concerns affecting the state and the city, the mayor has determined that an in-person meeting at City Hall with all participants may not be practical or prudent. Alderpersons and staff may not all be physically present at City Hall due to the disaster, and physical attendance at City Hall may be limited. To participate remotely during the public comment or public hearing portion of this meeting, please join by phone at 1-916-750-3293, PIN 129-865-464#.
Thank you very much. Roll call.
Alderperson Robinson.
Present.
Hurt. Gilbert.
Present.
Swanson.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
Poulos.
Here.
Mayor Tomes.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Public comment. Is there anybody that wishes to speak? Virtual or in the audience? Seeing none, we will then move on. And for information, the African American Civil Rights and History Grant presentation has been pulled until a further date, postponed until a further date. So we will move on to then the Rock Island Human Rights Commission Ordinance Revisions. Mr. Jerry Jones.
Thank you. So I have the honor as serving as the city liaison to the Human Rights Commission. Today we're going to discuss with you a proposed ordinance revision in regards to the powers of the Human Rights Commission. But before we jump into that, I'd like to give just a little bit of context and history. The Human Rights Commission has the ability to take complaints from someone who lives within Rock Island or who has a business in Rock Island, Illinois. It's during that time, once they receive the complaint, they review it to find if there's probable cause for a human rights violation, investigate, and then if they do deem it so that it is a human rights violation, they have the power to mediate between two entities. Over the many years, they've had a variety of complaints relating to housing and employment and some individual grievances. Some of the challenges they've incurred has been when they do find that there is possible probable cause, they cannot compel a party to show at any hearing, at any investigation, or share information with them in any shape, way, or form. And that leaves them without much ability to do anything to mediate or resolve the issue. Hence today, we've brought forth a new proposed ordinance that might be able to address some of the powers of the Human Rights Commission. We've asked our city attorneys to provide the revision, and in it you're also going to see not just the issues of what powers that the Human Rights Commission would like to hold, but rather also, a revised process and procedure recognizing compliance with state law and federal law to make sure that this Human Rights Commission is not working outside its purview or its jurisdiction. So, jumping right into the presentation, the Human Rights Commission will have these changes. They are currently a 12-member body assigned by the mayor, voted on by the city council. This will need to change to a 13-member body, and that body will be divided into two roles. One will be, 6 members will be the investigators or mediators, and then the second body will be the decision body. And these two bodies won't typically meet in regards to complaints. Their functions will be separate and distinct. So when a complaint is filed, an investigation for probable cause will be held to see if there is a determination for probable cause. As you see from the flow chart, if there isn't, then the investigation is complete, but the complainant does have the ability to engage in an appeal process. But if there is probable cause, as determined by the investigation, a formal complaint will be issued, and the respondent, or the accused, if you will receive the formal copy of the complaint, and the process will continue. Respondent will then declare their intent to mediate with the investigative body or contest, which would require a meeting with the decision-making body in a formal hearing. If they mediate, then investigative officers will facilitate a mediation and report the results to the entire commission. And hopefully at that point in time, the case is resolved. There will be follow-up to make sure that all aspects of that mediation have been followed through by all parties. But if there's a formal hearing, there's opportunity for there will be a need for a hearing officer, city attorneys, and defense, and the commission decision body. And they would have the power to make a ruling or decree a remedy to resolve the situation. What's going to be, notable changes according to the proposed ordinance is that, again, increased size of the commission from 12 to 13. There will be a need for a hearing officer, a person with legal expertise and experience to serve as the hearing officer in formal hearings. They will not be a member of the commission. The commission will have subpoena powers, the ability to request or compel appearance and/or provide records as needed for the investigation. They will have powers of judicial enforcement in civil proceedings, including the seeking restraining orders, temporary or permanent injunctions, or things that are necessary to obtain a complete compliance from the commission's orders. They will be able to issue fines and remedies, fines up to $500, payment of actual damages, hiring, reinstatement, promotion, back pay, fringe benefits, restoration of membership, admission to programs, public accommodations, services, attorney fees, all are within the purview of the commission to render. These decisions are, of course, subject to administrative review. In other words, in is it civil courts, Dave? Yes, that's correct. Okay, thank you.
If someone were to object, they would have a period of time in which they can appeal to the district court and ask the judge to review.
Dave, can you come up to the microphone when you talk, because no one at
Which
home
is the
can hear
perfect
you.
segue to them asking questions of you.
Sure. So, just like in other hearings that we have, whether it be municies or other types of code enforcement, a person who feels that they are aggrieved of a decision has the right for judicial review, and they call that the administrative review process. And they would they would file a petition over at the courthouse and say that this is what happened in this particular case. I disagree with it, and I'm asking the court to take a look and make sure that to either affirm the decision or to, in their case, it would be asking to modify or change that decision. Does that answer your question?
Don't go too far. So that is the bulk and the majority of what the changes in the commission ordinance is asking for your consideration. There are several members of the Human Rights Commission here in person. I think a few probably on or virtually attending as well, willing to answer any questions or provide any testimonial that you would like in regards to that. With that, be happy to open it up to questions from the City Council members as we intend to propose this ordinance sometime early in 2022.
Mr. Jones, this is Moses. How you doing?
Good, thank you.
And I think this question might be for Dave. I think when I first was sworn in, we discussed this. There was something about some kind of something with financial responsibility along with the subpoena powers. Is that correct? Is there any kind of money that the city has to put up in order to engage with the subpoena powers or something like that?
Well, if we're going to have if we're having a subpoena, then I'm guessing that that's a situation where we're going to have a hearing that's going to be contested, which would then entail having a hearing officer, much like we do with, like I said, like a municies or Cora type situation where you have an administrative law judge making a decision. So there would be a cost associated with that. There would not be a cost. I'd have to take a look at the contract information, because this isn't part of the current contract with the city attorney's office. So there may be some fees associated with just the preparation of a subpoena, but that's a relatively small cost.
Okay. So that's just case by case then? It's not like a flat fee or something like that?
Right. My understanding from speaking with Jerry and others that were on the commission, it's a really small number of cases, but it's happened maybe 3 or 4 times where they've had individuals who did not wish to participate. I think the vast majority of times the commission has been able to get the cooperation of individuals that they're dealing with, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, thank you very much.
To add to those comments, the commission is seeing approximately 7 to 10 complaints issued to them in a year. Not all of them reach the threshold as a human rights complaint. But as Dave said, there's probably 2 to 3 to 4 that contest appearance or contest cooperating with the process.
Jerry, this is Jenny Swanson. So the State Human Rights Commission has subpoena power. So I guess my question is, can the state be leveraged in these instances to require the subpoena power as opposed to it coming down to the city level?
Well, what we basically will have is two different, there's the state code and state human rights act. They're kind of two trains running on parallel tracks, for lack of a better term. And so if someone were to bring something to the city commission, we'd be talking about a city subpoena regarding our particular ordinance. Now, that wouldn't preclude, at least I don't believe it would preclude, someone from also going to the state for a remedy as well. This just gives us a local, closer to the persons who are the parties going through the enforcement process. So they'd be separate, but they kind of run on parallel tracks, attempting to accomplish the same end.
Okay, and then circling back to Alderman Robinson's comment, so if there was city attorney involvement, who would pay for that? Would the city pay for that?
Generally speaking, the city would pay for that, although there is provision in the ordinance for asking for recoupment of costs and fees. And then that kind of depends on whether someone is able to pay those fees or not. You know, I mean, you can get a judgment against someone, but collecting that judgment is not always as simple as getting the judgment.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? By a group? Must have done a great job explaining it.
Mayor, I was
Yes,
just
go
going to
ahead.
say that this is Alderwoman Gilbert. I know that Jerry and the Human Rights Commission have been working on this issue to improve the process for quite some time. So I'm glad to see that they finally worked it out so we can try it and hopefully it will improve the process.
Yes.
One of the primary things that we worked on or focused on was to separate the two functions of the probable cause finding and the investigation, to keep those separate, so that we have we have an independent investigation arm that's similar to what they have in the state statute, and then there is the commission making the probable cause determination, so that you don't have the investigator making the probable cause determination, much like in a law enforcement situation where the police officer doesn't make the determination regarding probable cause at a preliminary hearing. You have a separate entity making that, and so that's why there's the bifurcation there.
Any further comments, questions?
I just have a question with regard to your investigative body. What training have you given them to be able to conduct those investigations?
None as of yet, and that leads to a larger question. Once this proposed ordinance is decided upon, and if it is passed, there will be a learning curve for the Human Rights Commission. There will be training required in order to be able to enact this process.
Thank you.
There is a provision in our, I don't have it.
Hey, Dave, can you come up to the microphone, please?
There's actually a provision that calls for the training, and I can, I think it's in the last 3 or 4 pages, maybe 5 pages. I can find that site for you. But it doesn't say who's providing that training, and that is a good point. It does not set out, specify, and I think there will be a learning curve, and that once they have individuals who have been on the board for a while that have the training, they would then train train the new investigators.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or thoughts? I want to, of course, reiterate also, thank you very much to the commission for volunteering your time. It's very important issues. And so thank you very, very much for that. It's a great commitment, so appreciate all that you've done and will be doing. Very important. Anything else, Jerry?
No, thank you very much for your time and consideration. I'm going to echo your thoughts. This commission has worked diligently and passionately on this change, but more so in the issues that have been brought forth to them through complainants, their thoroughness and a willingness to do whatever it takes to make sure justice is served is commendable. I'm very proud to be a liaison for this group.
Thank you, Jerry.
Absolutely.
On behalf of our office, too, we would like to thank everyone on the commission and the people who had input, because obviously it's a long process, it's a difficult process, and we do appreciate all the cooperation and the suggestions and help that we received from the commission members, and also, I believe, some council members also had some suggestions or questions. So thank you for the cooperation in helping us prepare this.
All right, I believe that concludes this presentation.
Yep, yep, and then we have to vote on it. For that reason.
Does somebody know that or not?
Nope, I guess we'll have,
Mark,
Mark will do it.
would you do me a favor? Would you read this? Don't leave anybody on, no, here, fine. I'm talking to the council members. We're going to go into executive session. Could you read them that